I'd love to welcome everyone today to our Beyond Battlecreek podcast. My name's Kurt, and I'm joined here with...
Yes, Matt Ward here, man. It's so good to join you today. First podcast I've ever done, so This is going to be fantastic.
Second one for me, so hopefully we don't mess it up.
Yeah, I don't know how probable it is that we won't mess it up, but it'll be a great time no matter what.
So Matt, not everyone who is watching or listening knows what you do here. Explain to us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I've been here on staff for 3.5 years. Coming up this year, I can't believe it'll be 4 years I've been here. And I started out as the campus pastor at Midtown and loved that there. Was there for 2.5 years. And over that time, God was just really stirring in me. One, I fell in love with this church. God used that time to just really just weld me here. And the mission that we're a part of is amazing, how Pastor Alex leads and preaches. But then I felt this longing for a next level of leadership, not for me, just because I felt that it was in me to give back to the Lord. And so it's really neat to see how the Lord worked it out. Moved into the role of director of multi-site, which is what I do now. And I get to work with all 6 of our area campus pastors and their staffs. And it is awesome to have the seat that I have to see what happens in each of our locations. They're so unique, but they're so similar in, because of who we are as Battlecreek Church. And so, what I do is very unique. It's kind of hard to even say the day-to-day of what I do because it's so different. Plus, I've been in the role of interim campus pastor at a couple of our campuses during that time as well.
So you've had multiple jobs.
I've had multiple jobs.
Man, you sound lazy.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And so that has been a challenge to really dive in and do multi-site with excellence. But that's what I do. I'm the director of multi-site, so I work with our campus pastors.
That's awesome.
And our campus teams.
Now, when you started out in ministry, you didn't start out there.
No.
Tell me about, because I know that you and I have some similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
That used to be in worship and some other stuff. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so worship was a big part of what I did when I first started. So I've been in the role of executive pastor and worship pastor, which is kind of weird. Not a lot of people do that. And so in the places where I've gotten to serve before, it was in the role of executive pastor and in the role of worship pastor. And
That's cool.
They've not asked me to lead worship here at Battlecreek Church.
That's awesome. Yeah. You have a wife.
I do.
Tell us about your family and that.
Yeah, so my wife, Sarah, my best friend, we've been married for almost 17 years, which is just crazy how time flies. We are now to the point where we've known each other and been together longer than we were ever apart. And so we've reached that milestone where we're in the positive ground now of we've been together longer than we were ever apart. 17 years married, coming up this June.
And apparently she's an incredible baker. You were telling me right before we started.
Yes, she's amazing at everything she does. She really is. But she can cook, man. I mean, she's so good. Doesn't use recipes very much, just super creative. And then I've got Alyssa, who's my oldest daughter. She is going into high school. I mean, she'll be in 9th grade this next year. And Bella's our youngest. She'll be going into middle school. And so I'm looking at how do I have a high schooler and a middle schooler going into school next year? I don't feel like I should be that old.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know for me, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Kurt, and I am in a season of changing some of my roles.
Yeah, man.
I used to formerly be a worship pastor and have done that for most of my life. And when I came here about 18 months ago, I came on as experience lead. And in the last week or so, we've started a slight transition and role where I'll be a part of the executive team. I'm not sure exactly what my title will be yet, but I know I'll be overseeing multiple different areas of ministry, from campus pastors and next gen to worship and creative and community groups. And I know that you and I are going to get a chance to work together, which is awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Dude, I cannot wait. It's going to be so great, Kurt.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I recently is I was just thinking about how your wife is great at baking. My wife is great at cooking,
Okay.
but baking is not her strongest suit. So I was like getting a little jealous when I was hearing about some of those breads that your wife was
Yes.
making and stuff. But my wife and I, we've been married now for 21 years.
Wow.
We have 4 kids. We have 3 girls and 1 boy. And even just this last week, I've been thinking about some of the things we've been doing now since we've been in quarantine. I brought my daughter here into the church parking lot and teaching her how to park the car, which is way more complex than I remember it being. But
being the teacher and not the one behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And
then when I got out of the car and I said, hey, why don't you go ahead and try and pull in some of these spots? And I'm going to stand here acting like another car. I can't even tell you how many times I got hit, but it's
was
all
this
good.
late at night or during the day?
It was late at night, actually.
Okay.
What's funny is there was this voiceover thing that came over the camera system we have at the church that said, for your safety, the police have been called to make sure that everything's okay, or something like that. So I was like, Grace, let's roll out of here.
Yeah, so it's a good morning for all those people who want to use the parking lot for other reasons.
Yes.
That, hey, we've got eyes on you.
Absolutely. So I know that this quarantine thing is like totally kind of changed life the way we know
For sure.
Matt, what kinds of new things and new rhythms have you guys been incorporating in your lives? And what kinds of things have you guys been moving away from?
Yeah. Man, I think the first thing that just jumps out at me is our morning prayer times as a staff. I mean, that rhythm, Kurt, has been such a fantastic way to start the day. So you wake up, have your time in the Word, and then you hop on a Zoom call, which is now our new normal.
Yeah.
But getting to see the faces of our staff team and hearing their prayer requests and what God's doing and what He spoke to them that morning in His Word, us feeding each other, and then praying for each other. Man, that is a rhythm that I have just loved, and so that's a personal thing that I've seen. Just with our family, schoolwork at home is difficult, especially when you've got kids that have different learning styles.
We are grateful for teachers, aren't
Yes, amen, man. And so, when that rhythm of trying to help the girls navigate a heavy workload with their schooling, but still have fun and enjoy your day and figure out how do we incorporate breaks into their days has been challenging but good. And I'll tell you, working from home has been just refreshing for me, because when we're here and we're busy and we're going, there's a lot of times that I'll have missed calls from a lot of people. Sometimes it's my wife, sometimes it's my kids. And to be able to be done with a meeting and walk in and be like, how are you doing? Do you need any help? Can I help you with your math? Just that proximity to them, even though it's not a lot of time during the day because it's still busy, just that proximity has been fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then just time as a family, walking, riding bikes, going fishing, name a thing. That margin that we've got, even though the hours I'm working are still really high, just because it's good things. There are so many good things that are happening. Having that proximity to my family, to have a quick break, to be with them has been good for us. But man, what about you? What are the things that you're seeing that you're like, hey, I definitely love this that we're hopping into?
I think one of the things I love is, recently my mom and my stepdad moved to town and moved in directly across the street from us. So our driveways back into one another, which is
that's awesome.
Most people think that's like an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, but which I've never watched, but that's what I've been told.
Okay.
But the good news is for us, it's been awesome having them right behind us or right beside us. And within that, every day we've been taking a walk. We call it the 2:00 walk.
Okay.
And so we'll just take, 45 minutes to an hour just to get out of the house, get the kids out of the house, get my mom to walk along with us. And just the conversations that we're having, the amount of relationship and depth has been really, really, it's been good. I think the other thing I've enjoyed is really spending time individually with each of my kids.
Yes.
Of course, like you, I've been working tons of hours. But on the flip side of that, those break moments where I've been able at night to watch a movie with my son.
Yeah.
Or I've been able to wrestle with my little girls and tell each other stories and just watch their creativity. And honestly, some of the stuff that I miss during the day being at a workplace, getting to see that firsthand has been amazing.
Yeah.
Also, huge respect to my wife and to
Oh,
your
my
wife
goodness,
being
yes.
teachers and
Ah,
navigating the kids' schoolwork, and for all the moms or dads who are at home right now helping their kids. Man, much respect to you, because that's not an easy job.
no.
And teachers, we love you and we
Yes,
miss you.
we miss you
We
so
can't wait for
much.
summer to be over and for COVID-19 to be gone. But
Yes.
yeah, so I think it's been awesome for us just to have that focused family time, and also then to one new thing actually that kind of happened in the last couple months was there was a girl in my daughter's high school who was from Germany, and she was an exchange student, and for some reason her exchange family had to move away, and
Okay.
so she was kind of like in limbo. And so one of the cool things that my family has gotten to do, and actually happened right before this COVID-19 crisis hit, was we were able to invite this German exchange student to come live at our home. And so we got a chance
Wow.
to minister to her, to love on her, to bring her into our family. And that was a really cool opportunity for my kids to be the light of Jesus to someone who maybe has not yet crossed that faith line yet. But
Yeah.
for my kids and my family, for them to see what a Christ-centered family looks like, and for us just to show that love and to kind of rescue her out of a difficult situation of being here,
Right.
being far from home and not having a place to call home. And so that was a really cool thing for our family. It was something that really solidified us and unified us and gave us a chance to actually be self-sacrificial and servant-hearted towards this girl. So that was a really fun thing for my family to do together.
That's awesome, man. What about worship on Sunday mornings?
Yeah.
Like, I know for our family, whenever we work some services, right? As staff, we work some services, but when we're able to sit with our family, like, another thing that I would add to this is being able to sit and engage in worship and open our Bibles together, and then have the time to have our discussion questions, talk about the passage or the point that Pastor Alex is talking about. That has been an amazing rhythm that I just want to add that
Yeah.
God has done amazing things in our family through that time.
Yeah. I think worshiping, when you're creating services or you're singing on stage or preaching on stage, it's different in an empty
Yes.
room. But when you get to experience it at home with your family, I got to say the discussion questions that we've had in the middle of the messages has really been great, because even my 5-year-old is sharing her thoughts on what we're talking
It's
about.
amazing.
And then as we had the exchange student there, we're talking about
Yes.
faith stuff with her in the room, and she's watching the services with us and worshiping along with us. I just think it's been an awesome thing to be able, that we live in this day and age where we have technology, where we were able to do that. I feel like God, like, he foresaw what was coming,
Yes.
and creativity and innovation got us to the place through his inspiration where we could still do church while being separated from one another. I mean, that's an amazing thing.
That's right, man.
I think I've been really proud of our creative teams who instantly pivoted from a live environment to being completely digital. And so our creative teams, our worship pastors, our production guys, they're here
Outstanding.
they're here 40, 50, 60 hours a week right now,
Right.
who are creating this kind of content to make it easy for families at home, and so that people can be connected to one another, and so that people can hear the message of Jesus. And so if you're listening to this or watching this, I want to encourage you to like it, to share it, to comment on it.
Yes.
Because as you do that, it helps the algorithms of Facebook and Instagram and other things for other people to be able to experience that same content. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're the behind the scenes guys, and the talent that God has brought to that team to position us to do church online with excellence is, man, it's just something that I rejoice in and thank God for, because our team on the experience side is just outstanding, second to none. I love them to death.
Yeah, I love them too. Those guys are great.
Yes.
You know, as I was thinking about this, most people in our church don't know that we were planning, coming out of Easter, a series on Daniel. It was going to be an amazing series. We already had the sermons written. We had songs chosen. We were going that direction. And in a moment, Pastor felt the inspiration of the Holy Spirit of, like, you know what, we need to pivot right now. And I appreciate a pastor who is listening to God, looking and discerning what is happening at the times in society, and then making a move on that. And so I think one of the cool things is we pivoted in one weekend to also go to Choose Joy. And I think this series has been really good, because I think many people have this illusion that joy is a feeling.
Right.
And really, happiness is a feeling, and it's fleeting. But joy is a choice for us to we can choose to engage it. We can choose to, even in the midst of circumstances that are less than ideal, we don't have to let it rock our world. We can still choose joy. We can see like these amazing, beautiful moments that we've had with our families.
Yes, man.
We can choose that even in the midst of difficulties and hardships. I think it's been really good. What are some of your thoughts about what you've been learning? Things maybe from the last couple of weeks of messages.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that God's been teaching me through this time, really, kind of since we found ourselves in this new normal, is focusing in on His character and who He is. And so in the midst, especially in the early days when there was so much just like doom and gloom was what we were looking at, and it's just looked very, very dark ahead. Like God just reoriented my mind and my heart to who He is and to His promises. And so as I've been just reading and studying, and I will say this too, my time with the Lord, I don't remember a sweeter time than this time. And the other thing I've realized is that the pace at which I was running and our family was running was abnormal. And
I can relate to
God
that.
has been just renewing all those things in me. I've read and reread and actually written some message in Colossians chapter 1. And this is something that has helped me find a ton of comfort and peace in this time. Mm-hmm. And when Paul was writing, he says, for all things, which includes you and me, my family, were made by Him and for Him. That answers two questions. Who am I and why am I here?
Yeah.
I'm Jesus' creation. I'm made by Him very intentionally with a lot of detail and a lot of care. So that's who I am. And why am I here? I'm here for Him. And so what I get to do is bring Him glory. And man, that's just been something that's been resonating in me, that God has been restoring in me. And then in the Choose Joy, this series, my boss, Mike, he bought me this figurine. It's a Tigger figurine. And around here, like people kind of laugh sometimes, but I'm bouncing around the office a lot. I like to engage with people. I'm a 7, and I love being in a party. I love people. It's great. But he gave me that figurine. He said, Matt, you're your best when you're like Tigger. And I've kept that in my office. And I mean, it's right there on my desk just to remember that, man, happiness is fleeting. Yep. It's circumstantial. Yep. But man, like when I'm my best, it's when I'm filled with joy.
So good.
And so I'm remembering that, even though I'm not in my office and it's not there before me every day, I'm remembering that, man, circumstances change all the time. Yeah. Every day is uncertain, not just this COVID-19 day, but every day is uncertain. And walking just in the joy that we have in the Lord, that's some things that he's been sharing and doing in me. So what about you, man? Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think for me, going through this, I want to say, like you just said, that it's been sweet and awesome and amazing. But I found in this season, there's been times where I felt in a funk. Yeah. There's been times in this where I felt like maybe even a little depressed, or at times even like, man, I'm struggling to pick up the Bible. And what's interesting is I believe that form follows function. And so this idea of like, I just started picking up my word. I'm like, regardless if I feel it, I'm going to choose to engage it because I know it's good for me. It's like exercise. I hate to get up and exercise, but I know when I do, it's amazing how it starts to change the way I feel about exercise. And so I just started
never regret it.
Yeah. I just started keeping the discipline of, okay, this is what I'm doing. So one of the things I started a few weeks ago was, or actually 2 weeks ago was, I'm reading through Philippians every single day. Wow. It's only 4 chapters. So it's like 15 minutes of reading. But as I've done that, man, it's like God has just been dropping truth into my heart for this season, even outside of what Alex is teaching, which has been amazing. But it's like God's reinvigorated, and I've gotten to that place of sweetness, even though I didn't start in that place of sweetness. At first, I was like, the sky's falling, and I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. And so I'm like disaster preparedness and like trying to control the situation, because that's where 8s go when they're unhealthy. And I was looking for all the things I could control. And when I realized that I was out of control, it gave me this sense of like, this is difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, when you layer on top of that, that 9 months ago, my father passed away. And then in the last month, my wife's dad and stepmom both passed away.
Wow.
And so when you layer that complexity on top of this season, it just felt dark.
Yeah.
And it felt hard. And honestly, if I don't grieve really well. I tend to be pretty the same all the time. And so going through that season of grieving amidst the collective grieving we've had as a nation and as a world through this crisis, it was just hard. And I found myself in this valley, and I had to like recall these things to mind, that the Lord is good and therefore I can have hope.
Yeah.
And so, as I was listening to Pastor Alex's message from this weekend, I love this one verse he camps out on. It's in Philippians 1:7. He says this: "For I want you to understand what really matters."
Yeah, man.
I think a lot of times we focus on things that don't really matter. And so we start looking to our 401k, and that matters. We start looking to our jobs, and those things matter, but probably not as highly as we think. We start looking at, I have 2 kids who were in travel sports, and all that came to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
But, I kind of felt that mayhem of lots of stuff to do at work. My wife and I were going different directions, like just trying to get all the kids' stuff done. And this has been like a nice, like recentering, like God broke that tape and said, hey, I'm going to interject something in here about what really matters. And what I've really realized that matters is relationship with people, connection with others, my family, and my faith community. And that has been the sweetest thing to me. And then Paul goes on in this verse. He says in Philippians 1:7, "For I want you to understand what really matters." There's so many things we chase that don't really matter. But then he goes on to say, so that, and I think it's always important to pay attention in Scripture whenever you hear so that, because it's a pivot word. And it says that you may live pure and blameless lives until the day of Christ's return. And so when I think about that, I want to be a person who's not wasting my time. And I'm constantly talking to my kids about this. Like sometimes they'll be online and they're playing in Fortnite or they're doing other things. I'm like, you guys there's so much to life for you to learn and to enjoy and to know. And it's okay. Fortnite's okay. But if it's everything you do, it's robbing the opportunity that you have to learn and to grow and to be who God's called you to be. And so I think in this season, just that line of like, I want to focus on what really matters. And what are some of those things that you have found like in this, that what are the things that you are letting go of and what are the things that you're laying hold of? And maybe even Matt, in this, what are the things that what new things are you going to put in place because of what you've learned in this season?
Yeah. So that is exactly what has stuck out to me is essential. My life was full of non-essentials. Like it just, and most of it came like right up in here of things that I felt like I was essential to. Like I've always been the kind of guy that I don't want things to happen to me. I want to happen to things. Like that's like, I don't like being the one that things, just happen to. Like go happen to things, go change things, go be a part of things that are going on. Having to be still and having to not run and go crazy, because we were doing the same thing you were doing. I say this, when I first finally stopped running from God, which is a whole different story, and finally surrendered my life to vocational ministry, that my pastor, he said, Matt, just don't ever forget this. Don't sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. And in some ways, I had done that. Just totally being honest with you. In some ways, I had done it. But really what I feel like God has shown me is that I had sacrificed my family on the altar of activities.
That's good, man.
And when I think about what I don't want to do again is focus on so much of the activity that's not essential.
Yeah.
And so community, family, appropriate pace of life, those are the kinds of things. And honestly, when I think about, as our state opens back up and people are going back to work, like there's a part of me that's kind of anxious around how do I guard against falling right back into that busyness trap and that activity trap when that's just going to be my natural kind of pull. And so for me, the things that I want to keep in place, I want to keep those rhythms of healthy family time, unhurried moments as a family. We've been able to play games and watch movies and all those kinds of things that, like, that's what really matters. Those are the things the kids are going to remember.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I remember about my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to provide those same kinds of things, because when I was a kid, we didn't run like we run, right? Like we didn't. And so I want to keep those kinds of things, do away with so much of what I was talking about up here is that, everything doesn't hinge on me.
Mm.
It doesn't. And so many times I want to elevate my level of importance beyond what it actually is.
Yeah.
And resting in that is going to be what I want to continue to walk in.
You know, I want to go back to something you said just a minute ago, because I think it's so good, is that busyness is the enemy of intimacy.
Yeah.
Busyness is the enemy of intimacy. And one of the things I've found, even in my own life, Matt, sometimes we're driving so fast in ministry and in life and in personal things with family and those things, that we might spend some time in praying with God, but it's more of us just like telling God our needs, our requests, God, please protect us, and these type of things. But really, true intimacy is found in that stillness of saying, okay, it's a two-way conversation. God, what do you want to say to me? And I think like it's sometimes it's like if we sat down at a dinner table with our spouse and we're like, I'm just talking to her the whole time. Mary and I, Mary, let me just talk to you. And I'm never giving her a chance to speak back. There's no intimacy actually forged. It's a one-way conversation.
Right.
And I loved what you said, just that slowing down, giving yourself space and bandwidth to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, to allow God. I love this verse in Zephaniah 3:17. It says that the Lord your God is mighty to save, and that he'll quiet you in his love, and he'll rejoice over you with singing.
Man.
Think about that. What would it be like to hear the song that God is singing over your life?
Yeah, man.
A song that says you're loved, you're accepted, son, that you don't need to earn my approval or a favor. You already have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how much different is it when we live life from a place of acceptance versus trying to live life for acceptance?
Yeah.
And as you said that, I just thought, man, I don't want to go back to the busyness the way it was. I want to leave a margin for intimacy to happen between me and God. And I think that that's something that's beautiful that has come out of this season.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is something about me is I'm an extroverted outdoorsman, which I love spending my time with people, and I'm energized by like all the things that we do as a staff. Like I love all that stuff. Our community groups, like I'm energized by being with people. But as an outdoorsman, there's a longing in my soul to retreat, to get away into the wilderness. Yeah. And I've had a chance to kind of do that with a little more frequency, which I feel like is a lot healthier frequency, just to be honest, where there is that chance to be still. Sure. And while I'm fishing, man, I'm fishing. I'm not just out there like laying on a bank with a bobber, just floating in. I'm going after it. But man, God just speaks to me in those times when I get to look at his creation, I look at his creativity and his intentionality. And so, yeah, I'm with you, man. I long for that stillness. And for me, it's found so often, like Daniel and I were talking about before we started. Yeah. There's something about that for me, being in nature and even being able to be on a call or a Zoom call and walk in my neighborhood and hear the birds sing and look at the gorgeous flowers and all those kinds of things. Man, it's just nourishing to my soul in the midst of the busyness, where when I'm in my office and it's for really well painted and pretty walls and nice decorations, all that kind of stuff, it's just different for me to be able to engage in nature with the Lord during this time too.
That's good. Hey, so we're going to just turn a quick corner real quick, and we're going to do a segment I'm going to call Get to Know Matt. And so we're going to answer a bunch of questions in under 60 seconds. So I'm going to give you two options, and you got to tell me the option that Matt would choose. Sound good?
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. So Matt, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. We're going to do this in 3, 2, 1. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Chunky or creamy?
Creamy.
Frozen custard or gelato?
Custard.
Fishing or watching a movie?
Fishing.
Team Iron Man or Team Captain America?
Iron Man.
Netflix or Disney Plus?
Netflix.
Dark chocolate, milk chocolate?
Dark chocolate for sure.
Car or pickup?
Pickup.
Sushi or pizza?
Pizza.
Target or Walmart?
Walmart.
Mountains or beaches?
Oh,
Come on, man.
mountains.
NFL or college football?
College football.
Good job. You did it, man. Well done. Way to go. Thanks for playing that segment
Yeah,
with
man.
us. Hey,
the mountains or beaches.
Oh, I know.
How do I answer that one?
It's hard to answer that. I think one of the things that I've loved in this last season is seeing how our church has uniquely stepped up and how we're actually being the hands and the feet of Jesus.
Oh, man, yes.
And I mean, it's hard to tell how many stories have actually come in. Like, for example, we have this thing called Care Portal, and it's where needs are going up from our city who are putting needs in there, and also from our own community and from those around in our area. And what's interesting to me, I heard a thing the other day that needs that are going up on there are staying up there less than 24 hours.
That's right.
And it's clearing out almost every single day because people are being the hands and the feet of Jesus. Matt, you were telling me a story this last week of one of the ways that we were able to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Would you tell us that story a little bit?
Yeah, man. It's so cool. So, I just even go back to, because of our infrastructure, we're able to forward phone calls to Britain. We're unable to be here in our office.
And who is Britain, for those
Britain,
who don't know?
She's fantastic, but she's our front desk administrative assistant. Britain is so gifted. She's got this great gift for administration and task and all that kind of stuff, but she has a heart of ministry. It's so cool. Britain does a fantastic job, but
she does.
We're routing calls to her cell phone. We get a call from a guy who has found himself in Tulsa. He's a single guy. Both of his parents have passed away, and he's an only child. So Jonathan has been really alone his entire life, but he's never felt alone. He found himself in Tulsa doing some subcontractor work. When he arrived in Tulsa, he had a heart attack. Had to go in and had to do 2 stints.
With no family.
No family. He's completely alone in this city. And so he reached out to Battlecreek Church. And because we could route calls to a cell phone, Britain just happened to route that call to me. And I'm so grateful that God orchestrated that. I picked up the phone and talked to Jonathan, and instantly was endeared to him, asking about his walk with the Lord. And he said, man, I have walked faithfully with God my entire life. I gave my life to Christ when I was 12 years old. But I have never found myself in this position. I can't believe I'm actually having to make this phone call and ask for help. So he'd found a place that he could stay in a really rough part of town. He'd been here for almost a month by the time he called and said, I've kind of ran to the end of my resources. And so I said, man, let me see what we can do. I want to come up with, one, what is your need? And then 2, I want to find out how to share your story in a way that's honoring to you. And so through everything that he shared, he said, I need some help with lodging and some basic stuff, some food and some clean clothes. He said, do you think that that's possible? I said, I'll just tell you right now, we love you, Jonathan. We're a church that loves you. And tell me what you need. And I'm going to put that out there on Care Portal. And your needs are going to be met, Jonathan. I'm just telling you, we love you. And he just broke down and started weeping on the phone. He just said, I can't believe that a group of strangers would actually love me enough to care about me. I'm not even from this city.
So good.
And so lodging, a lady cut a check, paid for the whole thing. And he's here until May 1st. The doctors are releasing him to go home and he can actually travel May 1st.
And we got him into a new hotel
as well. So he was in a really rough part of town.
Yeah.
He said, I don't feel safe. One, because he's in a weakened state, that if something were to happen, he felt very unsafe. So we moved him to a better part of town that was in a much safer area. All his clothing needs have been met. Cleaning has been suspended where he's at. And so he's cleaning his own room. So we got him cleaning supplies and fresh clothes, laundry detergent. And another one of our families just delivered a ton of groceries to him just the other day.
I love it.
And I asked him, I said, Jonathan, I know what you need, basic stuff, but what would you want? You don't have to just eat canned soup. What would you want?
Yeah.
And he said, really? I said, yeah. You want some Mountain Dew? He said, oh, that'd be great. We got him some things that he made him
enjoy.
Yeah, he'd enjoy. Yeah. And so
I'm sure that made him feel
oh
seen,
my gosh,
loved and valued.
Yeah. And so he's just been so grateful for Battlecreek Church and this community, but to get to be front seat and see how the church has responded has been amazing. Just incredible.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So proud of my church. I'm so
Yes.
proud of my church.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I am too. I mean, like, to think that we put requests out there, and within a day, the same day, someone said, I'll write a check for it.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, he had groceries. He had a new place. I know you personally went and picked him up
Yeah.
at his motel and drove him to this new place that we took him to.
Yeah.
We even negotiated a cheaper rate so he could stay longer.
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
That's just the church being the hands and feet of Jesus. I love that so
Yeah,
much.
man.
So, Matt, we've been in this series on Philippians, and there's a lot we've been learning. What has God been teaching you about through Philippians?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we go back to is when I look at prayer, one, hearing my girls grow in their prayer life is so amazing. But we start with Thanksgiving. I mean, that's where we always start our prayers.
That's
God,
good.
Thank you. Because when we orient our minds to thanks,
Yeah.
like that changes the way that we pray.
Yeah.
And so for me, just watching that play out in our girls' lives and in my own life, just as pastors walking us through, we start with thanks when we look at joy, and then we look at prayer, how those two things have played in together in our family, and watching that grow in our family, and seeing how that's affirmed, right? Of just being full of gratitude as we begin our petitioning to the Lord, because it orients our minds to His goodness and His faithfulness, His loving kindness to us, and so that when we pray, and we do bring our needs to Him, it's through the lens of God. I'm declaring these things about who You are and what I'm grateful for in the person and work of Christ, and in You, and through the power of Your Holy Spirit that You've enabled us to do Your work. And so that's really what has jumped out at me in the life of our family.
So good.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, this morning I was actually spending some time in the Word, and the part that stuck out to me was in Philippians 1:12. Paul says this. He says, "But I want you to know, brethren, that the things that happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel."
Mm-hmm.
So remember, pay attention to that word, so that it has become evident to the whole palace guard and to all the rest that my chains are in Christ, and that most of the brethren in the Lord, having become confident by my chains, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. And I thought about this. So Paul says this, that the things that happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
When I was shipwrecked, when I was bitten by a snake, when I was put in chains, when it looked like I was at the end of my rope, God used that for the furtherance of the gospel.
That's right, man.
And man, when I read that this morning, I was like, man, how many of us look at the things in our lives as setbacks? Things that people would have said, well, that's God's judgment on you. Or when people might have said, when the enemy sent things to crush you or to take you down or to rob your joy, that could serve for the furtherance of the gospel. And that him being in chains, it wasn't about, that you would think that people would be afraid to share the gospel.
Right.
That they would shrink back in fear. Hey, we could have got arrested, or things could have happened to us that we don't want to be in Paul's spot. But because of what God had done in him, it gave people more boldness because of the way they saw the way Paul handled hardships. And man, when I read that this morning, I was like, man, God, whatever you call me through, no matter how difficult COVID-19 gets, no matter how challenging and circumstances may get in my life, no matter the fact that my relatives just passed away and we're in a difficult season, but you know what? The things that we're going through and the way that we handle it can serve for the furtherance of the gospel, and that might give people boldness when they go through things.
Man,
so we think about the fact of that verse that says that when we lose someone we love, we don't grieve as Christians like those who have no hope. Because I know I'm going to see my dad again in heaven. I know I'm going to see Mary's dad again in heaven. I know we're going to see her stepmom in heaven. And so we don't have to grieve as those who have no hope. Because we know that, and it doesn't mean that we're not sad. It doesn't mean we don't miss them. It doesn't mean that there's not like a hole in our hearts about it. But the fact is, the way that we go through grief and the way we go through circumstances, the way we go through things can serve to encourage others in their faith for the furtherance of the gospel. And so as I read that this morning, I was like, man, it lit me up on the inside.
That's so good. I think back to Jonathan. And so, as he was sharing with me, just one, I can't believe I found myself in this position. I've always been the one who would put myself on the back seat to help somebody else. He really was a joy guy. Jesus, others, yourself.
Yeah.
And I said, you need to just receive the gift that's the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And he's just said, man, I can't believe that I'm here, but I'm choosing joy because, man, what else do I have?
Yeah, that's good.
And so I'm so encouraged by that. And I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be better equipped to serve someone in your future by going through this.
Yeah.
And I told him that. I said, Jonathan, you're going to be able to empathize and you're going to be able to minister better because God's going to put someone in your path who needs you.
Yep.
When you get back home to Mississippi and you're going to be able to share the story of the goodness of God through a church that you never even heard of before, God's going to use it for the gospel. And so it's just cool that God's speaking that to you. And that's the same thing that I got to share with Jonathan, is that as you're choosing joy and you're walking with joy through this season, God's going to use that instead of you being down in the dumps, even though that gets hard and you're lonely, because you're choosing it and you're walking in that because you know who God is and what his plan is for you long term, that you're going to be able to then go and use this to minister the gospel well to somebody else that you couldn't have done had he not brought you through it.
So good. And I love that you just talked about choosing joy. Of course, that's the title of our new sermon series. But when you talked about Jonathan and him having to choose joy in the midst of his circumstances, it shows me that intentionality matters.
Yes.
And so you don't cruise your way into a better life. You don't cruise your way into a better family. You don't cruise your way into a better workplace without intentionality. You don't get a better body without working out. And obviously, I've been eating a lot more, but you don't easily just find yourself into a more fit state. Mm-hmm. Intentionality matters in every single area. And so when we choose joy in the midst of hardship, it's amazing with the fruit that it develops inside of us. Hey, we got to start wrapping up our time here, but a couple things I want to let people know is that we have tons of fresh content out. Our creative team is just put the pedal to the metal and like coming up with all kinds of new things. And so we have something for people every single day and tons of new content. So on Mondays, we have the Beyond Battlecreek podcast. On Tuesdays, we have The Table, which is a women's Bible study time that happens every Tuesday at 10 a.m. On Tuesday nights, we have high school students and junior high students ministries going live. It's called Tuesday Night Live. On Wednesdays, we have a thing called Distance Socialing, where we connect with some of our volunteers over Zoom and just find out like what God is doing in their lives and how they're going through this. On Thursday night, we have Kids Night, where you want to tune in with your kids and have them watch this. On Friday night, we're doing our top 5 thing with our young adults. It's amazing. On Saturday and Sunday, we got Church Online. And then on Sunday night, we have Better Together, which is a study that's happening on both Facebook and on YouTube for community groups or those who do not yet have community groups. So if you don't have a community group and you're listening to this or watching this, number one, we want to thank you for staying with us for so long. Yeah. But if you're not connected to a community group yet, I know it may be difficult to connect with people online who you don't know, but I want to encourage you. Get connected because you don't know what kind of friendships are going to come out of this. That's right. You don't know what kind of growth is going to come out of your life. And like I just said a few minutes ago, intentionality matters. Mm-hmm. I know of a guy who was in our church who realized this one time when he said, hey, I had a couch to move in my house and I recognized I had nobody to call. Wow. And it was that thing that got him then engaged in a community group because he realized I need to do life with others. Yeah. And so life is better together. It is, man. So it's good. I love it. We want to thank you guys so much for listening to the Beyond Battlecreek podcast. And we look forward to connecting with you next Monday. Make sure you tune in for it. Have a great week. Yeah, thank you. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Beyond Battlecreek podcast. It has been a delight, Matt, to be here with you and to work through all this. And, we want to encourage people to follow us on both every single podcast platform. We're on it. So make sure that you guys subscribe to it. And then also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Remember to like and to share those things because that helps get out the message to other people. And so we want to thank you once again for following us. Matt, thanks for being here with me. And this has been an awesome time to get to know you. And we want to encourage you guys to have an amazing week.